And joining us right now is Shankar Sharma, Vice Chairman, Joint Managing Director at First Global and a long-time watcher of markets. He joins us from Dubai. Shankar, thanks very much. Good afternoon. Not afternoon, still yet there, but what are your thoughts with the financial market in perspective? What are your thoughts on the Bihar outcome on Sunday? What does it mean really for financial markets?
Well, I think these results are very significant. We had a set of results from Delhi in February this year, which were kind of a pointer to maybe a larger shift in the mood of the electorate. But it was hard to say that was real and for sure, given that it's a small state and it's a largely urban voter. Bihar is very significant because it represents the rural mind quite adequately. And in that sense, this mandate that, in my view, it is a mandate against the BJP and for, an alliance which is promising intrusive politics. In my view, this is very significant, and we should not just think of it as a mayor assembly election. It has ramifications, in my view, even for Lok Sabha elections, which are, of course, 3.5 years away. But it will have some effect on the realignments in 2019, which means that for the intervening now 3.5 years left for the next polls, the ruling party, ruling government will be under a lot of pressure from various differing streams of thinking within the party. I mean, one stream is the development stream, the other stream is the polarization stream, and they are quite adequately represented. It's not that the development stream overshadows the polarization stream and vice versa. Each has very strong voices talking about it. So there's going to be internal conflict within the mind of the government as to what is the right strategy to follow. And that never augurs well for any hard decisions or strategic thinking, because you're always going to be thinking that what about the UP polls that are going to come up? What about West Bengal that's going to come up? What should we be doing for the Assam polls? So moment a government starts getting distracted amongst assembly elections and the reform process, that is a little bit of a mess. So I'm reading very significant things into this mandate, very, very significant things.
Shankar, whatever else we might say, but the fact is that Mr. Nitish Kumar did a lot of work in Bihar, right? I mean, nobody disagrees with that. For power, for roads, I mean, all this talk of Jungle Raj, I mean, a large portion of young people would have heard of Jungle Raj, but wouldn't have experienced or lived through Jungle Raj. And that is because of Mr. Nitish Kumar, in a way. So his strong point also was development. And obviously there was no real anti-incumbency. So the BJP also, of course, I mean, there is this polarization, etc., which we can talk about, but it's also it got the votes for Vikas, etc., in 2014. And development, that plank is still one of the major planks which the BJP fights elections on. My only point is, so the vote in Bihar is not against the policies of development, right? I mean, we surely are not, you're not surely saying that. So if that is not true, then this is a local election then. This becomes a local election, local factors.
I don't think it's as simple as that. This is a vote also for politics which is not palatable to, at least that's what my belief is, palatable to large parts of India, which is the politics of polarization, or to use religious idioms to drive home the point that you should vote for party X and not for party Y. I think that message has been rejected by the voter. So therefore, if that message has been rejected, then the development message is the message that you might say was accepted as far as Nitish Kumar is concerned. But if that is the case, then there's nothing to say that in 2019, Mr. Nitish Kumar is not a viable PM alternative. Because if people have liked him as a development person, as a Vikas Purush, then why not the rest of India? Because ultimately, we had one state CM becoming PM of India. Why not another state CM? And again, that state is not a small state. It's not a marginal state in terms of putting number of people into Lok Sabha. It is a pretty, sizable state. So think of those alternatives also, that vikas or development cannot no longer be simply the preserve of the BJP. And in any case, I don't believe that development is something exclusive to the BJP. Any government anywhere in the world comes to power on the plank of development. I mean, I don't know of any, unless you're a religious party and you're talking about Iran and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're always going to fight election on the basis of jobs, manufacturing jobs, development, growth. What else are you going to fight elections on? So it's not that it's the BJP's exclusive reserve to talk about development and everybody else is talking about something else. And in that development narrative, now you have been injected a very significant player, and Nitish is actually a pretty acceptable face across party lines. And today, because of the electronic media, now he's become a pretty well-known face through these elections across the entire country. So that is the other thing you need to focus on. That now there is another likely consensus candidate for a secular alliance at the center for 2019. That queers the pitch for the BJP. I mean, that is the reality. I'm not saying that will happen, but it definitely muddies the waters.
Shankar, does it get way too tougher to get some of the... I mean, one thing which financial markets have been fixated on is what... I mean, we can debate what GST will or will not do. There are those who say, well, actually, GST and a high rate would actually dampen consumption. But anyway, GST is what broadly the market wants. You think it'll get it now or it'll get way tougher?
In my view, the GST bill that has been proposed is flawed. And that's the primary reason why the Congress has opposed it. The Congress has been the champion of GST and was opposed by actually, members of the opposition in the UPA government. Now the principal opposition to the GST is that there are problems with the bill, and the Congress has given its recommendations, which I've seen that they're quite reasonable. So if the opposition and the ruling party can find a way to work together rather than work at cross purposes, then the GST will happen. But if the government again adopts an attitude of being inflexible, then I don't think it'll see the light of the day. Now, in light of these election debacles, it remains to be seen whether the government is willing to be more malleable, willing to be more humble, willing to be more accommodative. That is the real question that I am looking at and searching an answer for. Will they be easier people to deal with now on the floor of the parliament?
You think in a twisted sort of way, corporate India would be a little, maybe even a little happy at the at the result, at the outcome? Because I mean, the logic was that in 2014, after the elections, markets cheered that it's great for private enterprise, etc., etc. But the point was the mandate was so huge that nobody had any leverage in that sense, right? I mean, corporates, etc. No one would obviously say it openly. But now with, 2 elections lost, people get a bit of leverage. Shankar, is that a right way to look at it? So I mean, actually, it's not such a bad thing.
Well, I never said it's a bad thing anyway. So so I mean, you're talking to the wrong guy here. I mean, look, let's be very clear. Let's be very clear, Prashant. I was not part of the cult believer camp that one person holds the keys to India's fortunes. And it's nothing to do with Mr. Modi, it's nothing to do with the BJP. That is my general belief in life, that putting too much investment emotionally, mentally into a single person is not prudent. We have to diversify our risk of thinking. The whole country, and particularly my community, was so fixated on that the gentleman in question had some economic secret which none of us can figure out. Despite the fact that we watch economics and markets all day long, but none of us have that secret figured out, but only he has got it figured out, and on that day he will reveal it when he is elected. That was a very childish perspective, and I said this openly as well, that irrespective of whoever it was, even if you were to put the same store in Manmohan Singh, I would have still said, guys, let's just back off a bit. Running a government is a very complicated thing. Let's not just assume that one person is going to change everything. So, in my view, whatever the government has done or not done is very consistent with my belief. It's people who expected it to have delivered, and of course, the election narrative in 2014 was that everybody was going to get a lot of goodies from the government, be it down to the farmer or to the industrialist or the trader, everybody, which is not possible. Somebody will obviously lose out in this stakes. So everybody bought into a tale. Now everybody's saying that tail doesn't exist, but I never bought into the tail. So I'm not sitting here and cribbing the government is doing nothing. Because I never thought the government is going to go out the lights anyway. It's a tough environment. And, just mere election promises are not good enough. I need to analyze it, whether they can be realistically done or not. My view was they're very hard to deliver. That's what has happened.
Shankar, in a way, the last government got too much, took a larger than needed beating for the economic woes back then. And in a way, the current government is going through the same thing. I mean, behind all of this, there is a cyclicality to the economy, right? I mean, so you can only push so much in either direction.
You are right and you are wrong in the sense that, yes, in my view, the previous government was vastly unfairly dealt with, but that's part of the election process. People bought into the stories of another party, and after 10 years, in any case, there's going to be fatigue with no matter who is running the country. That fatigue was flamed by the narrative that everything will suddenly change on May 2014 if somebody else is voted to power. People said, all right, we'll give you a chance. But the fact is the previous government did tremendously well if you look at the data. If you just look at stories, Manmohan Singh is not a great orator. I mean, that nobody, even his best friend, will never say that. But we don't need just oratory. We need people to actually deliver numbers. And the last government delivered terrific numbers, in particular from 2008 to 2014, when the financial crisis hit us. India emerged from that crisis the strongest nation amongst all major nations, bar none. And I have said this openly, show me one country in the world that did better than India from 2008 to 2014. Show me one country. Not even a single country. China grew marginally faster, but obviously with a huge debt buildup. Other countries are not even worth talking about. India grew at 7.5% in that period of 8 to 14, while actually decreasing your debt to GDP. So yes, there was an inflation problem, but obviously we can live with inflation because inflation is a permanent problem. We can deal with it. But if you have a debt problem like China does, you have no way out of it. So the previous government managed it prudently, never got enough credit for it. That's fine. That's the way the voter mind works. But this government raised expectations. The whole election campaign leading up to the Lok Sabha polls were a very high-pitched campaign of milk and honey for everybody. I never believed it because I'm a rational person. I'm not a cult believer of anything. Not even a cult believer of God. Why should I become a cult believer of a mere mortal? There's nothing to do with that particular model, any model. Even if Prashant Nayak was going to run for PM office, I would still question your policies. That's the way to do. So this government being unfairly dealt with is not narrative. I think they raised expectations. You bought the expectations, now you got to deliver the expectations. Now you can't say that you are being unrealistic. You told me that farm prices will be higher and inflation will be lower. Right? I didn't ask for it. You told me that. Now you jolly good deliver on that. Now I never believed both are possible. People believed it. Poor farmers believed it. City dwellers believed it. So don't blame the voter or the industry for having unrealistic expectations. Those were engendered and fostered and flamed in the election era.
Absolutely, absolutely. On a lighter note, when you said that don't invest too much in one person, don't put all your hopes in one person. I mean, of course, the exception is if, if you're married to them, I guess, that's a different story. But okay, so we've spoken about markets earlier, Shankar. What does it mean for markets? And let's just divide it into two parts. I was talking to someone and they were saying that the domestic guys could still, the money could still flow from the domestic side. It's about $1 billion a month, which retail investors have been handing over to mutual funds, and they in turn have been doing the buying. But foreigners, it becomes slightly more tricky from here on. It's not just because of India, but because of other global reasons as well, which we've discussed in the past. So just break it up a little bit for us.
Yeah, there is a serious emerging market problem. in terms of liquidity flows to EMs. There's a reverse flow. I mean, talk to fund managers, they're getting redemptions. The whole asset class is hurting big time. I don't see that changing given the strength of the US dollar. So India is obviously an emerging market within the entire pack, although Indians tend to believe that India belongs to a different planet, that no harm can come to India by way of liquidity flows, and India is always going to be the market of choice for foreigners. Clearly, the data is not showing that. So, in my view, EMs are in trouble. And within that context, from a flows perspective alone, India will also be, more or less somewhere in that pack. And with these election results, will at the margin also negatively impact flows. Yes, the domestic investor, I think, has very few options. So to that extent, some of that, ballast will be taken up by the local investors. And I hope they do because I don't see any other major options for them in real estate. Fixed income looks good and equities as far as your overall pie chart of investing. So I think, yes, foreigner side going to be very, very weak, not just because of India's own problems or the election issues. I think overall EMs are hurting. Domestic liquidity seems quite okay. We'll see where that money can go other than equities and debt.
Shankar, thanks very much for your time. Great
Thanks very
speaking
much.
with you and look forward to speaking with you again. Happy Diwali, by the way, to you, your
Happy
team,
Diwali to
family.
you and to all the viewers of NDTV Pro. Thank you so much.